Hello, everyone. This is Mary Gregory with MAS Coding Solution. Oh, it is a wonderful day here in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's a hot day here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but it is a great time to be alive. And I am so thankful that you have decided to join me today in our lesson. Our lesson today is going to be Back to Basics, preparing for your coding certification test. It doesn't matter whether you're taking the CCS, the CPC, or the CRC, or you're taking some type of auditing test. Anytime you're taking a certification test that's dealing with coding, then you will have to know and be an expert, a subject matter expert in the basic coding guidelines. So today, we're just going to do a review. And another reason why I want to do this is because, as you all probably know, I do a lot of inpatient coding or facility-based coding. I work with inpatient, I work with outpatient, but I do it on the facility end more than I do it on the Part B end, which is the physician outpatient. And we have a resource that everyone should be using, but hospitals coders tend to use it more than your physician office coders or outpatient coders, and that is the coding clinic, the AHA coding clinic, the American Hospital Association coding clinic. And the coding clinics are printed, of course, by the AHA, and these coding clinics are given to us as a reference, but really and truly, it's almost like they are a New Testament. We have to follow what's in that coding clinic. Even though they claim, well, we just offering suggestions, but we have to follow those guidelines that's in the coding clinics. When they give us not necessarily a guideline, but when they give us a directive, let's put it like that. They give us a directive on coding. Well, we have to follow that directive that they give us on coding. Well, recently I have noticed they are answering a lot of basic coding questions. Now, personally, I think they should refer us, when I say us coders that's asking these questions, rather than just always giving the answers. Maybe we should refer them back to the rules and the guidelines and have people to look for them. One of the things as I have aged in this life and mature is this. Sometimes we are not helping people when we give them the answers. Sometimes we need to tell people, wait a minute, let me tell you where you can go and find the answer, okay? But they don't do that, so I thought, well, since they're having to answer so many basic coding questions, maybe it's time for us to do a review. Also, too, I think we as educators have to accept some of the responsibility that we may be moving way too fast in trying to teach coding, because everybody want to learn coding yesterday. But coding takes time. Now, yes, if you learn these guidelines and you learn how to apply these guidelines, then yes, you should be able to do some basic coding, and you should be getting better as you grow in your coding. So today we're going, like I said, we're going to talk about some of the basic coding guidelines. Now, these are the general rules. We're not getting into chapter specifics. We're getting into the general coding guidelines. These general coding guidelines applies to whether you're inpatient, outpatient. It can even apply to nursing home coding, because the concept is the same. And we don't have separate rules and guidelines for HCC coding. There are so many people, I think, that's under the impression, because it said HCC coding, that you are using a different set of guidelines. That is not true. HCC is just a payment methodology. It's a way that the government pays for managed care companies that have the Medicare managed care companies. That's it. they have to use the same guidelines that we use. The guidelines, the coding guidelines are the coding guidelines. But as we know, these guidelines can be exploited. There's a lot of exploitation going on with the coding guidelines, as far as I'm concerned, okay? Now, of course, this is America. You are free to disagree. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing. No problem. But the guidelines are the guidelines. But we tend to twist the guidelines, and some of these guidelines can be open a little bit to interpretation, but not always. No. But anyway, let's talk about it. So one of the first things we want to talk about with the basic coding guidelines. Now, I'm not going exactly like how the guidelines are in your official coding guidelines. They are outlined differently. I'm just going briefly over some of them. Like I'm not doing format and structure. I'm not doing talking about the placeholder. I'm just really talking about the instructional notes that you will have in the basic coding guidelines. So today we're talking about the instructional notes that you will find in the basic coding guidelines. We must understand those basic instructional notes and know how to apply them to our everyday coding world. So let's talk about includes. When you see the word include underneath a chapter heading or a category heading, it is there to clarify the content. But guess what? That note may not be all inclusive, but it will have the most common things that it's trying to clarify for you. For instance, if you went to I-10, you have an include note that says this code also represents high blood pressure. Okay? So you got some include notes. And so these includes notes, you have to learn how to read and understand the includes notes. They just there to give you more information, okay? And sometimes, like I said, the include note is not all exhaustive. And so there are times when your index may get you to a very specific code. And you know, a lot of codes don't even have include notes. They don't even have them. And what makes some codes have the includes versus some never have an includes, I don't have a clue. Okay? So we got our includes notes. Then we have our excludes note. Exclude notes are very important. You got to exclude one note and you got to exclude two notes. You must know how to use these notes properly because it can cause you to have compliance issues, or you can get into trouble with getting reimbursement for things you shouldn't if it increased the reimbursement. If you don't know how to use it, you can also lose reimbursement. And so you have to understand your exclude note. Exclude one note means you do not code these two things together when they are on the same encounter. That is an exclude one. It means don't code me here if you also have this code. The two conditions cannot be reported together. For example, if you got an F10-1, which is an alcohol abuse, and then the physician say he got alcohol dependency, F10-2. Now, of course, these things got some fifth characters and sixth characters, so I'm just talking about the base code, the base category code. I can't code an abuse with a dependency. It has to be one or the other, but it cannot be both. And we have a coding guideline to tell you how to handle that. When the physician one time said abuse, the next time he said dependency, we have a coding guideline to tell you how to handle that. But if you're not certain, then of course you can always query the physician and say, or you want me to code abuse or you want me to code dependency. But those two things cannot be coded together. You cannot code a congenital and a non-congenital condition together. That's in the same 3-digit category or the same body part. If someone has flat-footed, next. They don't say flat feet. I said flat feet, but you can also find flat foot. If you have that, you have a congenital code and you have a non-congenital code. You can't code that both together. It's either going to be congenital flat-feeted or non-congenital flat-feeted. But you can't have both on the same encounter. So those exclude one note mean I cannot be reported together. Exclude two mean, look, if you got both of these conditions together, it's okay, you can code both. No problem whatsoever. For example, if I have, they gave me this example, but I don't really, if I have a patient that has an acute exacerbation of his asthma and an acute exacerbation of COPD, I can code both of those because I got an acute exacerbation of the asthma, I got acute exacerbation of the COPD, both of those can be coded. Now, if it's not exacerbated, I have to do a little bit different, but I won't get into that today. So these two conditions, that it means, hey, I can code both of them at the same time. In fact, I was looking in diseases of the blood and diseases of the blood and blood forming orders. That's blood forming organs and or disorders. That's D50, D as in dog, through D89. If you look at in that chapter, we have what we call a chapter specific exclude two code. So when you go to when you go to the chapter, it has diseases of the blood and blood forming organs and certain disorders involving the immune mechanism. D50 through D89. Under D50 through D89, you have an exclude two note. That exclude two note applies to all other codes between D50 and D89. And so it's telling me that if I have any code in this D50 through D89, and they also have an autoimmune disease, I can use an additional code to show the autoimmune disease. So my patient may have a iron deficiency anemia, but if he or she also have an autoimmune disease, I'm going to have an additional code. So exclude two notes means both can be coded. Then we have an instructional note, and this is so key. Your code first note and your code and use additional code. These are a sequencing guidelines. This is a sequencing guideline, and you have to follow the sequencing. So when you get to a code, usually if you get to the manifestation code, which is the use additional code, then it will tell you, hey, you need to go to another code and code it first. See? So code first appears with the manifestation code. And it would direct the coder to code first the underlying condition. For example, go to G99.0 in your book, Autonomic Neuropathy in Disease Classified Elsewhere. Code first the underlying disease. So you was at the manifestation code, and it tells you in that manifestation code, look, you got to code something else first. I can't be first. This is key in the principal/primary slot. Now, I won't get into, sometimes you may have 60 diagnoses. You can have 25 diagnoses. You can have 30. And so that G99.0 may not be my primary diagnosis. It can be a secondary diagnosis. It's always going to be a secondary. It can never be a primary. So when I got multiple codes and let's say my principal diagnosis is congestive heart failure, systolic, acute, I-5021, I believe it is. So that's my principal. Now I got this secondary diagnosis of G99.0, and it says code first my underlying disease. Well, guess what? I got the I-50, I got a MI code, maybe I got a COPD code. If I put the G99 before the other code, it's not going to affect anything. This rule is saying G99 can never be a principal. It can never be a primary. That is what it's saying. Anytime when it says code first, their underlying condition, make sure you're not putting that underlying condition in the principal slot. Now, if you're using an encoder tool, if you're using a CAC tool, it will not allow you to do that. If it's allowing you to do that, you got a bad tool, okay? And you need to talk to whoever is developing that software. So code first. And so they give you an example. It might be the diabetes, but look, that's just an example. That diabetic, that autonomic neuropathy could be due to another type of nervous disorder. It's just saying code first. And they give you diabetes because generally that's the one that's the most frequently associated with it. But that doesn't mean that it cannot be due to another condition. Then we talked about the code first and use additional code. So I got to have two codes to fully identify that condition. The other code going to go first. My manifestation code going to go second. You also have another one that says code also. Code also is not a sequencing guideline. It's just saying, look, if you got this additional condition, you can code it. And you know what? Sometimes it can be your principal. Always remember, you're coding the condition that is responsible for occasioning the admission to the hospital for inpatient care and or outpatient. See, sometimes we want to get caught up on different wording like code for golly, I have to look at the coding guidelines for first listed code. First listed. First listed just simply means this is the primary. What caused that patient to be seen? That is whether it's going to be your first listed, your primary, or in my case, in my inpatient stay. It is the condition after study to be chiefly responsible for occasioning the admission to the hospital for care. That's the definition for inpatient. Okay? Then we got C and C also. This particular instructional guideline has been causing some issues, and I've been seeing it addressed twice, at least one time in the coding clinic. C is mandatory. So and these are used primarily in the index. So you may not see this if you're using coding software. Just depends. But when you get ready to take a certification test, normally you don't have software, you have a book, whether the online book or whether you have a hard copy book like here. C is mandatory. C also is optional. And we got to learn to understand this. So, for example, if you go to uterovaginal, uterovaginal, it'll tell you to see the condition. Because guess what? ICD-10 rarely, if ever, give you a code just because of a body part. What is the condition? So it says go and see what the condition is. Also, I found another one. If you go to, let's say the patient come in with aching joints, and you go to the word aching, or you go to ache, A-C-H-E. Guess what? It'll tell you to see pain. It's not going to give you a code. Under C will never give you a code. It'll tell you to go to the condition, or it'll give you another condition to go to. So in 8, it says see pain. So now if you go to pain gonna say, is it pain in the joint? Is it pain in the leg? And you're gonna get the code that you need depending on your documentation. But C also is optional. And that's where we as coders have to realize Just because it tells me to go see something, don't mean I'm going to use that code. I can just go to see if it's going to give me more specificity in the condition that I am trying to code. But I may get there, so you know what? This doesn't fit my condition. Therefore, I'm not going to use it. If you go to the word disorder, and you go to, when you go to disorder in parentheses, it says see also disease. Well, I may not need to go see disease, but I can go check it out if I need to, because when I go to disorder of let's go to disorder acidosis, I can get my code for acidosis, be it lactate, be it metabolic. I don't have to go to disease. But guess what? When I have a mass, M-A-S-S, mass is not coded to any type of neoplasm, period. It's not benign, it's not uncertain, it's not unknown, it's not a malignancy. Mass, when you have a mass, the rule is you have to go to either disorder or you're going to go to disease. And so sometimes when you go to mass and I go to intestinal, it may tell me see disease of the intestinal. So now I'm going to have to go to disease, I'm going to go to intestinal, and they're going to give me some unspecified code unless I got more specificity in my documentation. So remember, C is mandatory because generally when you go to C, it's not going to give you a code. You're going to have to go somewhere else. If you go to, I think, disorder, and you go to, I believe it was psychosis, I went to disorder, and under the word acute, it had psychotic. It did not give me a code. It said, look, you got to go to psychosis acute. So C never give you a code. Well, C also, which is optional, will give you some codes. And it's up to you to know, do I need to go check out this optional code and see if my documentation meet the specificity of the optional code or not. Don't just code that optional code when your documentation does not support it. Okay? With. The word with is hugely important. Now, the word with means that the two conditions are assumed to be related unless your physician document that they unrelated. If you go to diabetes, is the best example. If you go to diabetes in your index, go to the word with. With is always listed directly under that main term. It's not in alphabetical order like due to. You want to do due to, you got to go to the D's and find due to. With is not like that. With is listed directly under the main term. So when you go to diabetes, it got with. So if you got somebody that got CKD and they got diabetes, you the coder make that relationship, and you're going to code the E1122. You're going to do your N18 code. It is the physician's responsibility to document that they are not related. So anytime you have with, it means that they are related. Then you have the word and. And simply means, it could mean and or are. You know, I think if you go to pulmonary embolism, it has and pulmonary emboli or and pulmonary. So just once again, and just saying it can be either or. Sometimes they'll use the word and, sometimes they'll use the word are. But it's either that, either or those conditions. One could be, either condition be present. So remember and or, either or both condition may be present. And then remember you have your default code. If you don't have a default code, the default code is always listed at the main term. If you do not have a default code, guess what? You got to have more specificity. Brackets are used to include synonyms, alternate wording, explanation. Once again, if you're using coding software, you don't see this, but they will give you the alternate word. If you're using the software, some of the time the software will ask you that you have X, Y, and Z, and you choose X, you get this code. You choose Y, you get the same code. Choose Z, you get the same code. You know why? Because they're just alternate wordings. Then you have parentheses. hugely important. Parentheses are non-essential. Anything in parentheses is a non-essential modifier. These words will not affect your code assignment. So also remember, and we're about to close on this lesson, because remember this is a lesson back to basics, preparing for your coding certification. So when you go to parentheses, and I always like to do pneumonia because it has so many there in parentheses for you. So when you go to the word pneumonia, I should have written down the page number. Let's see here, it shouldn't take me too long to get to it because it's huge. Okay, here we go. Pneumonia. So when you get to the word pneumonia, in parentheses, you have the word double, you have the word migratory, you have the word purulent, you have the word unresolved, and you got your default code of J189. And so these are non-essential modifiers. If the physician document that the patient has double pneumonia, J18 is your code. If they don't document it, it's J189. All right, that will end our lesson for today. Like I said, this lesson is for you to, if you're thinking of, it's just a good back to basic. I always use this analogy. They say the best ball players are the ones that always go back to basics and use the basics. If you want to be, and we're going to do this in the next video, if you're thinking about becoming an auditor, you have to know the guidelines. You have to become an expert on the guidelines. Doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. That's not what it means. But it does mean you have that confidence level that you need to become an auditor. And so you're going to have to learn, you got to master these guidelines. So, hi, this is Mary, and I'm going to sign off for today. It's been wonderful talking with you today. I hope that you find this lesson beneficial. Okay? Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook. We're on TikTok now and Instagram. And our website is www.mascodingsolution.com. And we also have our network that we have. We have a coding support network that we use called the Medical Coding Lounge. You can join us there for, I think, $19 a month, $20 a month. And we have chats there. We have additional education that we provide there. So check us out on the Medical Coding Lounge. Go to www.mascodingsolution.com and click on membership, and that's where you will find more information about our Medical Coding Lounge. That is our coding platform that we have for coders and by coders. Come learn with us, grow with us, and connect with us. And I look forward to talking to you in the future.